Hello, Greenfield community. I'm Superintendent Galvan with the Greenfield Union School District, and today we're going to read a beautiful story about separate is never equal. And we're going to continue to talk about the struggles of folks in our country, the struggles of folks in our communities, and celebrate those differences, and talk a little bit about a journey of a beautiful family, the Mendez family in LA, and how desegregation started. And so we're going to talk a little about some big words, but I want you to kind of understand what's happening right now in America the best way that we can. So, hola comunidad de Greenfield, soy Superintendente Galván del Distrito Escolar de Greenfield, leyendo otra historia con ustedes, celebrando las diferencias entre las personas en nuestro país, en nuestra comunidad, en nuestra nación. Y esta historia se llama Separado Nunca es Igual. So, vamos a leer una historia de una familia mexicanos, Méndez, que nacieron y vivieron en Los Ángeles, en un pueblo que se llama Westminster. Y esa es la vida de ellos en realidad. Cómo pasó las escuelas separadas para personas diferentes, que no era justo. So, vamos a leer lo que dice aquí. Y ojalá que ustedes puedan sentar con sus niños. So we're going to read the story Separate is Never Equal, about the true life story of the Mendez family in Westminster, California, which is in Los Angeles. So parents, go ahead and have a seat with your children so that we can read this together. So separate is never equal. Sylvia Mendez and her family's flight for desegregation. Written by Duncan Donatu. Sylvia had on her black shoes. They were shiny new. Her hair was perfectly parted in two long trenzas. It was her first day at the Westminster School. The halls were crowded with students. She was looking at her locker when a young white boy pointed at her and yelled, "Hey, go back to Mexican school. You don't belong here." For the rest of the day, Sylvia did not speak or introduce herself to her class. She kept her head down when walking in the halls. When she got home that afternoon, she told her mom, "Felicitas, what had happened. I don't want to go back to that school anymore. The kids are mean." "Silvia," said her mother, "no sabes que por eso luchamos. No sabes por qué eso luchamos? Don't you know that is why we fought?" 3 years earlier, in the summer of 1944, Sylvia and her brothers Jerome and Gonzalo Jr. and their parents had moved from the crowded city of Santa Ana, California, to a farm in nearby Westminster. Her father, Gonzalo Mendez, had labored for years as a field worker, picking grapes and oranges. Now he was leasing a farm. He was going to be the boss. On their new farm, they were going to grow asparagus, chilies, and tomatoes. As the summer came to an end and the first day of school neared, Aunt Soledad drove Sylvia and her brothers and their cousins, Alicia and Virginia, to the local public school on 17th Street so they could enroll. Sylvia was going to enter 3rd grade. Gonzalo was going to go into 2nd grade, and Jerome was going to go into 1st grade. What a beautiful, handsome building, thought Sylvia as she pulled into the parking lot. Tall trees lined the street in front of the school. There was a playground with monkey bars and a red swing. When they walked into the school, they noticed that the hallways were spacious and clean. "I'm here to enroll my children in school," said Aunt Soledad when they arrived at the principal's office. The secretary gave Aunt Soledad 2 enrollment forms, one for Alice and one for Virginia, but she did not give her the enrollment forms for Sylvia and her brothers. "Oh, they cannot attend this school," said the secretary. "They must go to the Mexican school." "What? Why do I have to go to the Mexican school?" Sylvia wondered. She was not Mexican. She was American. She spoke perfect English. Her father was from Mexico, but he has become a U.S. citizen. Her mother was from Puerto Rico, which was a U.S. territory. Aunt Soledad was very upset. But we all live in this part of town. Sylvia looked at her cousins. They had light skin and long auburn hair, and their last name was Vidauri. Their father was Mexican, but of French descent. Then she looked at her brothers and at her own hands and her bare arms. She wondered, is it because we have brown skin and thick black hair and our last name is Mendez? Rules are rules, said the secretary. The Mendez children have to go to the Mexican school. I will not be enrolling any of them then, said Aunt Soledad, and she stormed out of the office, taking Sylvia and the other children with her. When they arrived home, Aunt Soledad told Sylvia's father what had happened. Mr. Mendez told her not to worry. It had to have been a mistake. He would take care of it. He was a businessman, and he was used to dealing with people. The next day, Mr. Mendez met with Mr. Harris, the superintendent of the Westminster School. Mr. Mendez explained that his family had just moved to a nearby farm. The public school on 17th is the closest school to our house, and my children should attend it. No, your children have to go to the Mexican school, said Mr. Harris. But why? Said Mr. Mendez. He was not given an answer, other than, that is how it's done. In the following days, Mr. Mendez met with Mr. Atkinson, the county superintendent, Mr. Harris's supervisor, and then he met with the school board, which oversaw all the schools in Orange County. But they all said the same thing. Your children have to go to the Mexican school. But why? Mr. Mendez kept asking. No one could give him a satisfactory answer. That fall, Sylvia and her brothers had to attend Hoover Elementary, better known as the Mexican School, on Olive Street in the city of Westminster. The building was a clapboard shack, and the halls were not spacious and they were not clean. A cow pasture surrounded the school. The students had to eat their lunch outside, and the flies would land on their food. There was an electric wire that surrounded the pasture to keep the cows in. If you touched it, you received a shock. The school did not have a playground, not even a swing. The Mendez family did not give up. Time and time again, Sylvia heard her father talk to coworkers, friends, and other parents. It's not fair that our kids have to go to a different, inferior school, he said. It's not only the building that's a problem. The teachers at the school don't care about our children's education. They expect them to drop out by the 8th grade. How will our children succeed and become doctors, lawyers, or even teachers? Mr. Mendez created a group called the Parents Association of Mexican American Children. He tried to collect signatures for a petition to integrate schools so that all children, regardless of their skin color or background, could have the same opportunities. But every time he asked someone to sign it, he would get the same answer. No queremos problemas. We don't want any problems. Many of the parents worked on the farms owned by white families and feared they would lose their jobs if they supported the petition. One day, a truck driver overheard Mr. Mendez trying to convince a worker to sign his petition. You know, said the truck driver, you could just file a lawsuit. The truck driver told Mr. Mendez about a lawyer named David Marcus, who had filed a lawsuit on behalf of the people in San Bernardino and had helped them integrate the public pools there. At that time, not only were schools segregated, but also other public places as well, such as pools, parks, and movie theaters. Some businesses even had signs that read, No dogs and no Mexicans allowed. Mr. Mendez decided right then and there to hire Mr. Marcus, even if it meant having to spend all of his money and all of his savings to do it. No dogs or Mexicans allowed. Public pool. Over the next few months, Mr. Mendez and Mr. Marcus traveled all over Orange County, looking for people who had experienced similar problems. Sylvia watched her father leave early in the morning. Sometimes she saw him come home in the evening, but oftentimes she only heard his footsteps when he got home late at night. While he was away, Sylvia's mother had to take care of the farm. Mrs. Mendez would get Sylvia and her brothers ready for school, and then she would go out to the fields. She started the irrigation system, she drove the tractor, she oversaw the workers, and she would solve any problems that arose. With the help of Mr. Marquez, Mr. Mendez found and talked with other families who were dealing with the same segregation. One of them was the Estrada family. Mr. Estrada had fought in World War II. He had risked his life next to Americans of all races and backgrounds. But when he returned to America from the war, he found out that his children were not allowed to attend the same school with white children. Es una injusticia, said Mr. Mendez. It is an injustice. The Estrada family joined the Mendez case, and so did 3 more families. The families were from different schools, districts in Orange County: Westminster, where Sylvia lived, Garden Grove, El Modena, and Santa Ana. Mr. Marcus wanted to show that segregation of students affected not only Sylvia and her brothers, but more than 5,000 children in the public school system all over Orange County. On March 2nd, 1945, Mr. Marcus went to the courthouse and filed the lawsuit. The trial was held at court in Los Angeles. Sylvia and her family dressed in their best clothes and sat in the courtroom to listen. The hearing lasted 5 days. Each day, Mr. Marcus called to the stand parents from the different districts in Orange County and the superintendents from each of those districts too. On the first day, Mr. Kent, the superintendent of the Garden Grove district, was questioned. He said that he sent children to the Mexican school to help them improve their English. That is a lie, thought Sylvia. Her English was good already, and she could speak English with any of the children at the Westminster school. Do you give the children any tests? Asked Mr. Marcus. Mr. Kent claimed he did. Why do so? By talking to them. That is another lie. He said, we do so by talking to them. That's how they test them. And Sylvia said, that's another lie. No one had questioned her. They rejected her from the Westminster school without even asking her if she knew English. For what other reason do you send children to the Mexican school? Asked Mr. Marquez. Sylvia and her family braced themselves to hear what Mr. Kent would say next. Oh, for their social behavior. They need to learn cleanliness of mind, manner, and dress. They are not learning that at home. They have problems with lice, impetigo, and tuberculosis. They have generally dirty hands, dirty faces, dirty necks, and ears. The Mendez family and others in the room stared at Mr. Kent in disbelief. What he was saying was a lie. It was not true, and it was degrading. How many of the 292 children of the Mexican school are inferior to white in personal hygiene? Asked Mr. Marquez. Oh, at least 75%. And in their scholastic ability, 75%. And in what other aspects are they inferior? Oh, in their economic outlook, in their clothing, and in their ability to take part in the activities at school. Do you believe that white students are superior to Mexicans in the respect that you are mentioned? Yes, yes I do, said Mr. Kent. And is that one of the reasons why they are being segregated? Yes. Time and again, Mr. Mendez had asked, why can't my children attend the Westminster School? Now he had his answer. On the second day, Mr. Marquez called to the stand a 14-year-old student from the Mexican school in El Modena. Her name was Carol Torres. She spoke perfect English. It was clear that she had not been sent to the Mexican school because she had problems speaking English, said as the defense lawyers claimed. Mr. and Mrs. Mendez were questioned on the third and fourth day, and so was Mr. Harris, the superintendent of Westminster School. Sylvia was not called to the stand, but she was ready to testify if they asked her to. She tried looking for her best every morning, and she practiced what she would answer. On the fifth and final day of the hearing, Mr. Marquez called to the stand 2 education specialists to explain why was it bad to segregate children into different schools. Segregation tends to give an aura of inferiority. In order to have people of the United States understand one another, it is necessary for them to live together. And the public school is the one mechanism where all children of all people can go. The judge nodded her head. He seemed to agree with this. Judge Paul McCormick took almost a year to give his decision. But when he did, he ruled in favor of the Mendez family. In this ruling, he said, public education must be open to all children by Unified School Association regardless of lineage. This meant that everyone must be allowed to attend school, no matter what his or her race or background is. The Mendez victory made newspaper headlines. Sylvia's family was ecstatic, but they did not have much time to celebrate because the school board appealed the decision. That is, they asked the judge with more authority to review the case and to change the result. The case was reviewed by the Court of Appeals in San Francisco. During the appeal, the Mendez family received support from the League of United Latin American Citizens, the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, the Japanese American Citizens League, the American Jewish Congress, and many other organizations. These groups sent letters with information relevant to the case and asked the judge to rule in favor of the Mendez family. Sylvia was amazed that people of different backgrounds and of different parts of the country who had never even met her family were getting involved in the case and trying to help them. But her mother said, "Cuando la causa es justa, los demás te siguen." When you fight for justice, others will follow. On April 15th of 1947, the judges in the Court of Appeals in San Francisco ruled in favor of the Mendez family again. That June, Governor Earl Warren signed the law that said that all children in California would be allowed to go to school together, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, and regardless of the language they spoke. "So remember," said Sylvia's mother, "we fought to make sure you could attend a good school and have equal opportunities." Sylvia thought long and hard about what her mother had said. The next day she returned to the Westminster School. This time, she did not listen to people whispering. She ignored the children who pointed at her and called her names. Instead, she held her head high. Her parents had fought, not only for her, but for her brothers and her sisters and all of her classmates. Looking around, she saw that other children were smiling at her too. By the end of the day, she had made a new friend. And by the end of the school year, she had made many friends of different backgrounds. She knew that her family had fought for that. And that is the story. There's some pictures of the people. Top left, this is Sylvia when she was younger. This is Sylvia in 2011. And this is Sylvia's parents. And then that's the school. The schools that she attended. What a beautiful story. And wow, separate is never equal. Boys and girls, life is about experiences. And while we're coming to all of our schools here in Greenfield and no one is ever telling us you can't come to school, that everyone deserves to be taught, we value that and we love that. But we need to remember that it was not always like that. Here in this story, it is a story, but it's based on a true story of the Mendez family. And they fought really hard to make sure that all kids can go to school together. And we never take that for granted and we never forget that. So when we do things in Greenfield, we need to make sure that we do things for all of our children the same way that we would do for any of our children. So thank you for listening to this story. Separate is never equal. I'm your proud superintendent that will do everything we can to celebrate you. And so I'm going to send you a really great bear hug, big bear hug from our family to yours.